if you're a driver and you're operating under the Driver Inc. model, they're coming after you, man. Right? They're coming after you. You better have a conversation with your boss, and you better tell your boss, look, man, we might need to renegotiate my contract. Hey, welcome to the Golden Belt Buckle Podcast. We're doing a bit of a late night podcast, so I'm a little tired. We'll see if we can get through this. If you like what you see and what you hear, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, and hype the video. I always forget to ask that. Apparently that helps you somehow. So we're going to talk about the CRA's press release today. Says that they are ending the moratorium on T4A penalties. So let's just back up. I'll give you a quick overview of this whole story here again so we can catch you up. What's this T4A business all about? The T4A is like a T4, except the T4A is for independent contractors, whereas the T4 is for employees. Back in 2011, the Harper government introduced Box 48 on the T4A, which was for the employers to declare how much money they were paying their independent contractors. And now they put a moratorium on enforcing this new law to give employers time to adjust to the new law and get their ducks in a row. The only thing is they never they got voted out before they were able to. Well, they had plenty of time. They just didn't do it. Let's just be honest. They were voted out, and then the Liberals came in a couple of years later, and they never did anything about it either. So the moratorium has gone on from 2011 all the way up to 2025. So the significance of the T4A and this Box 48 is that when a known trucking company declares how much money they're paying their independent contractors, that is a red flag for the CRA when they get that information to then do an audit on that company to find out if they're actually classifying their drivers accordingly. Like, is this driver really an independent contractor, or is this driver an employee? And that's a significant question because, again, to just reiterate, a driver who is being classified as an independent contractor, we call them, as we say, they are under the Driver Inc. model. They are their own business. And as their own business, the company that is employing them doesn't need to take any taxes off of their paycheck, and they don't pay into the disability, for example. They don't pay into unemployment. They don't pay vacation pay. All the payroll taxes that come off of an employee's paycheck, they don't have to take them off of the independent contractor's paycheck. That is the one operating under Driver Inc. Because the driver that is operating under Driver Inc. is their own corporation. So the employer just gives them money, and it's up to that driver, who is the CEO of their own corporation, to take off their own taxes, which apparently they don't really do that often. They usually don't pay the taxes, which is part of the problem. The government loses out in millions of dollars of taxes every year because of it. Now, for the employer's part, this is an advantage to them because not having to pay all those payroll deductions, they can put lower bids into the shippers to get their goods moved. And by putting lower bids in, that makes them more competitive than the trucking company that is properly classifying their truckers as employees. Now, because paying for your drivers is expensive, right? So you can make it less expensive by classifying your drivers as independent contractors rather than employees and have to take all those taxes off, right? Because that's just cost added to the shipper. So now our government has very strict sets of guidelines as to how you should be classified. We've gone over this, right? Are you using the company's equipment? Are they controlling your dispatch? Do you have to be loyal to them 100%, like at their beck and call, right? It's things like this the government looks at and they're like, okay, if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's a duck. If you look like an employee, you're being treated like an employee, you're an employee, right? And so by having people fill out this, as I said, by having people fill out this Box 48, the government knows how much money a company is paying to its independent contractors, and it can tell if it's a trucking company. And that's just a red flag for them to go in and make sure that they're actually properly classifying them. So there was a moratorium on penalizing companies that were not filling out Box 48 on their T4A. That moratorium has now been lifted. The government pledged $70 million for the first year and $19 million for subsequent years. And so they put this news release out saying, as of today, December 4th, the CRA has lifted the moratorium on penalties for failing to report fees for services for the 2025 tax year and subsequent tax years. Businesses in this sector will now be assessed penalties if they fail to report payments for services exceeding $500 in the calendar year that are made to a Canadian-controlled private corporation, i.e. the Driver Inc., in the trucking industry. These payments must be reported to the CRA in Box 48, Fees for Services, of the T4 slip by February 28th, 2026. Since this date falls on a Saturday, an information return will be considered on time if the CRA receives it or it's postmarked before March 2nd, 2026. A business is considered to be operating in the trucking industry if more than 50% of its primary source of income is from trucking activities. So that's the gist of this press release that's going out. The crackdown has started. They're coming after you right now. So I don't typically when I talk about Driver Inc., I come down on the companies pretty hard, because it looks like they're being shady, right? And they are being shady. They're creating an atmosphere of unfair competition. But really, is it the company that's creating this environment? I have to check myself, or is it the government that's responsible for this, right? Because maybe I'm defending them a little bit here, but if you own a trucking company, say it's 2011, and the government comes out with a new law that could potentially hamstring your business, right? Make you less competitive, put you on an even keel with other companies, and you look around, you're a small company, and you see that nobody else is following this law. Are you going to follow the law, right? Knowing that if you're honest and you follow this law, you could potentially be losing your customers because your neighbor down the road who also has a trucking company, they're not following the law, and they're going to go undercut you and take your business right out from underneath you. Whose fault is that? Is that the driver's fault, or is that the company's fault, or is that the government's fault for creating an atmosphere where corruption would reign supreme, where corruption and fraud would be rewarded, where you almost have no choice but to act in a fraudulent manner in order to stay competitive because no one else is doing it. No one else is following the rules, right? So that's a question. Whose fault is that? I mean, it reminds me of when I was younger. I was put in charge back in high school of refereeing a soccer game. And I remember I had the idea in my head. I was going to just let them play, right? And, I learned a real lesson there. Rules are not, there's no point in having a rule if you're not going to enforce it, right? It's because the kids started playing dirty. Anybody that wasn't going to play dirty, they were going to get hurt, or they were just going to be at a disadvantage, right? And I remember I actually had people angry at me because I wasn't making any calls, right? Likewise, in business today, we've got trucking associations, and just independent trucking companies. They're all pissed off at each other over this. People are angry because the government hadn't been enforcing the law. They were essentially just letting everybody play, right? And by doing that, they created an environment where fraud would reign supreme. Fraud would be rewarded. So, human nature is, it always goes toward corruption, right? I think the Stoics and the Christians have it, right? I'm pretty sure Stoics held the same philosophy that people are, they're just corrupt, right? You give us an inch, we'll take a step, right? If the government puts a law in place and they leave a bunch of loopholes, people are going to take advantage of them. And if your neighbor's taking advantage of those loopholes, you're going to take advantage of those loopholes because you have no choice. The government has put it there, right? You can either be honest and out of business, lose your shirt, or you can be dishonest and stay in business and get the prize, I guess, right? You can stay in business, right? So that's pretty much the situation. Now, they're not, if you look at the language here, just going to mention, they're not going after them retroactively, which, they're going to go after them in subsequent tax years. So they're starting to enforce it now, moving forward. They're not going to be going back. So again, they're not enforcing it retroactively. So again, who's... I don't think anyone's an idiot for following the law, but sometimes you look like an idiot when you follow the law, because those companies that didn't follow the law, again, they're going to be rewarded again because the government's not going after anybody retroactively. So, they made the right call. They made the right gamble by not following the law, by just waiting for the government to enforce it. They were able to stay in business, make more money, and now here you go. The government has set a date, which is now, and they're not going after them retroactively. So that's that. The gamble paid off. And now, one last note I want to say before I end this is that the drivers themselves, if you're a driver and you're operating under the Driver Inc. model, they're coming after you, man. Right? They're coming after you. You better have a conversation with your boss, and you better tell your boss, look, man, we might need to renegotiate my contract here, right? If you need to bring me over from being an independent contractor to an employee, you better do it now, because if they're going after you, they're going after me, right? And they're going after you, right? Once they figure out that you were not ever meant to be an independent contractor, what's going to happen to you, right? They're going to start looking at your taxes. They're going to look at your tax write-offs, right? You're going to get audited. So start having that conversation with your employer. And if you are right now, again, if you're under this Driver Inc. model and you don't think you should be, you just know you shouldn't be under this model, you better start saving some money for taxes, because they're going to get it from you. So that's all I got right now. That's the major news story. You know, sometimes the government keeps their word. So anyways, let me know what you think of this. I'm sure this is good news for a lot of people. What do you think of my analysis? Do you think I'm way off kilter and blaming the government for this? Blaming them and not really the trucking companies as much? Anyway, till next time, cheers. I'm going to bed. Take care. Keep the rubber side down.